Fake HOA officer blocked my SUV, then 12 Army trucks surrounded his golf cart. My name's Avery Grant. I'm a logistics officer in the Army Reserve, stationed out of Fort Monarch. I've served 15 years, been deployed twice, seen the edge of the world more than once. But nothing prepared me for the entitled storm that was Karen and her fake HOA security. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of day that fools you into thinking it'll be quiet. I was driving lead in a military convoy non-combat, just a coordination run to transport non-classified cargo to a partner base. 20 minutes ahead of the main group, in my personal SUV, off-duty, still in my civvies, but hauling ID, clearance, and an encrypted sat link in the back. And that's when he pulled me over. He was driving a white golf cart with flashing amber lights mounted on a rusted roof frame, parked sideways across a narrow residential road leading out to Highway 24. He wore mirrored sunglasses, a neon vest, and a patch that said HOA Traffic Enforcement. Not city police, not county, just those three words sewn onto a shirt that didn't fit. He stepped out, held up a hand like he was SWAT, and pointed at me. "You're speeding in a community zone," he barked. "Step out of the vehicle." I thought it was a joke. I rolled my window down halfway. "Sir, I'm not in a community zone. This is a public connector road. There are no posted speed limits lower than." He slapped the side mirror with an open palm. I said, "Step out." That's when I felt it. Not fear, training. I kept my hands visible. "Do you have a badge?" "I have authorization from the Willow Estates HOA. This area is under our private traffic compliance. There is no Willow Estates out here." "There is now," he snapped. "Step out or I call it in." I blinked. "To who?" he smirked. "We have direct lines to county dispatch. I'll report you for reckless driving and obstruction." Reckless driving. I had moved at 27 miles per hour. I stepped out slowly, keeping my composure. My ID and active military license were clipped inside my jacket. I didn't want to escalate, not yet. Not until I knew what this was. Then he reached for my door handle, tried to open it, tried to grab my sat bag from the passenger seat. That's when I stepped between him and the door. "You need to back off. Now. You're impeding an HOA officer in the line of duty," he growled. I stared him down. "You're impersonating law enforcement on federal infrastructure." He froze. Then he laughed. But the laugh didn't last, because in the distance, the ground began to rumble. 12 military transport trucks rolled up behind me, slow, steady, all marked with U.S. Army decals, dust clouding the back, uniforms visible through the windshields. The fake cop turned. He went pale. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to, because the convoy boxed him in. One of the soldiers dismounted, stepped beside me. "Sir, this man giving you trouble." I nodded once. The soldier called it in. And just like that, the whole damn house of cards began to fall. The moment the convoy locked down the road, everything shifted. The fake officer, later identified as Mark Decker, went from aggressive to confused real fast. His mouth moved, but nothing came out. He looked at the military trucks, then back at me like he couldn't figure out how reality had turned against him. I didn't flinch. Behind me, my convoy security lead, Staff Sergeant Gutierrez, stepped out of the first truck with a radio in one hand and a GPS device in the other. "This man trying to interfere with a federal convoy?" she asked, her voice clipped and calm. "He attempted to detain me," I said, "claimed he was HOA law enforcement. No jurisdiction. No badge." Gutierrez nodded once and radioed it in to Fort Monarch Command Dispatch. Mark finally found his voice. I need to call my supervisor. You're violating private road codes. You're all on HOA-controlled lanes." I stared at him. "We were on County Route 24, a public road that predates the subdivision by 20 years. You have one chance," I said, "to walk away before this turns into a federal obstruction charge." But he didn't. He got on his cell, stepped a few feet away, and muttered, "We've got a problem. He's military, and he's not alone." I couldn't hear the other side of the call, but I didn't need to, because 30 seconds later, A white Mercedes SUV rolled up from the other side of the roadblock, kicking up dust like a storm. Behind the wheel, Karen. I didn't need the name. I recognized the type. Perfect hair, oversized sunglasses, clipboard on her dash. She rolled her window down without even making eye contact. "What's going on here?" she asked, already annoyed. "Why are there military trucks in my neighborhood?" I stepped forward. "This isn't your neighborhood. This is a public road. Your officer here attempted to detain me." She looked at Mark, then at me, and then she smiled. Smiled. "You can't park here," she said simply. "Convoy or not, this road is part of Willow Estates' HOA managed perimeter. Our board authorized a traffic policy extension last year." "You forged that policy," I said flatly. "There's no legal documentation on file with the county." She flinched, and then doubled down. "I don't care if you're the president himself," she snapped. "You're violating neighborhood regulations. These trucks aren't permitted on residential streets, and if you don't move, we'll fine every single one of you." She wasn't bluffing. I later found out Karen had filed over 200 fake citations in the past 6 months to drivers using that connector road. Anyone who didn't live within her self-declared jurisdiction was subject to $75 to $150 fines paid directly through her HOA portal. A portal hosted on a free Wix site. Gutierrez stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm Staff Sergeant Gutierrez of the United States Army. This convoy is operating under federal authorization. You've interfered with a lead vehicle and attempted to delay mission-critical transport. That is a federal offense." Karen's mouth opened, but before she could speak, more vehicles pulled in behind the convoy. Black and white. Sheriff's units. Someone had called them, and it wasn't Mark or Karen. One of our rear scouts had alerted local law enforcement about the obstruction, and they rolled in like they meant business. The lead deputy stepped out, glanced at the setup, then said the one thing I'd been waiting to hear all morning. "This is County Road. There's no HOA authority here. Who the hell are you people?" Karen finally started to unravel. "I'm the Willow Estates HOA president. I filed emergency traffic protections under Community Ordinance Extension 4B. This is a residential perimeter." "There's no 4B on file," the deputy said. "I checked 5 minutes ago. County never approved it. You're forging citations and impersonating traffic authority." Mark started to slowly back toward his golf cart. Too late. One of the soldiers grabbed the front bumper and yanked the whole vehicle sideways into the ditch. The deputy didn't stop him. Mark and Karen were both detained on site. No handcuffs yet, but they were separated and interviewed. I provided my formal statement, along with GPS proof of the route, dash cam footage, and my military identification. But that wasn't the end of it. The deputy told me privately that complaints had been building for weeks. A pizza delivery guy fined $120 for non-resident entry. A school bus forced to reroute. A utility crew threatened for parking on restricted soil. Karen had created a phantom HOA boundary around 3 streets and a connector route that didn't belong to her community. She'd convinced residents through fake signage and fake bylaws that they had private authority. She even had fake road signs installed. One read "Private Residential Zone, No Through Access, Violators Fined." That sign wasn't county approved. It wasn't even properly mounted, just bolted into a tree stump with steel brackets. And somehow everyone believed her. That night, back on base, I filed a formal obstruction report through my CO and submitted a federal incident log. But I couldn't stop thinking about how easily it happened. How a man in a vest and a woman with a clipboard nearly derailed a mission because they believed they could. The next morning, the sheriff's office released a public statement confirming that no HOA jurisdiction extends over County Route 24 and that multiple fraudulent citations were under review. The community Facebook page for Willow Estates exploded. Some backed Karen. Most didn't. One comment from a neighbor read, "My daughter was terrified when 2 men with HOA vests knocked on her window last month. I thought it was legal. I thought it was real. Now I know better. That was the beginning of a much bigger fall. Because the deeper we dug, the more rot we found." Karen wasn't just forging citations. She was forging ownership. Karen didn't go quietly. Even after being detained for questioning and publicly debunked by the sheriff's department, she posted a 4-minute Facebook video the next morning wearing a blazer, a flag pin, and that same clipped tone that screams, "I'm the victim here. I was just trying to protect our streets." This wasn't about power, it was about peace. The military presence on our roads was unnecessary, and the so-called harassment I'm being accused of is a coordinated attack by people who don't understand the values of this community. I watched it 3 times. She still believed it. Worse, some of her followers believed it too, but not the sheriff's office. Deputy Mallory, the lead on the case, called me 2 days later. "We've got a problem," he said. Turns out, Karen had filed easement claims on 5 separate roadways, including the one I was pulled over on County Route 24. Not with the actual county, but through a private real estate trust she'd set up under the name Community Oversight of Willow Estates LLC. The trust was bogus, but it looked official enough on paper to stall permits and confuse enforcement. Even worse, she'd used those forged easements to partner with a third-party towing company, Rivertown Recovery, who had no idea the contracts they were executing weren't legitimate. That's how she got people to pay. That's how she got cars towed. And that's how she convinced people she had power she never did. I drove back out to the road 2 days later alone this time. And what I saw made my stomach knot. Karen had installed cameras motion censored, aimed low to avoid streetlight glare, hidden just beneath metal street signs she'd personally screwed into city poles, and in the tree speakers, she'd installed a pre-recorded voice warning that said, "You are entering a private enforcement zone. Please return to designated roads. HOA compliance will be notified." It was like driving into a fake military checkpoint built out of plywood and ego. I called Gutierrez. I also called Deputy Mallory, and that's when the real fire started. Mallory and I met at the county registrar's office with a municipal fraud investigator named Rachel Timmons. She wore steel-toe boots and carried a stack of binders like they were grenades. She dropped one on the table. Inside, a paper trail of forged notary stamps, backdated permits, falsified community votes, and proxy signatures. Karen didn't just claim HOA power, Rachel said. She manufactured it, with paperwork, stamps, shell companies. This wasn't neighborhood drama. This was white-collar crime. She pointed to one signature. This person passed away in 2017, but somehow she voted on a zoning override last March. I leaned back. She faked votes too. Rachel nodded grimly. We believe over 80% of her HOA decisions were never voted on, just printed, filed, and enforced, and it all came back to one address, 424 Willow Glen Road, Karen's home, her garage converted into a fake office, her upstairs guest room lined with inkjet printers, file cabinets, and even a home laminator for creating official HOA ID cards. She even had one for Mark, HOA Tyranny, Inc., with Mallory's help. I obtained copies of the citations Karen had written. There were dozens unauthorized overnight vehicle, $75, improper road exit usage, $50, vehicle volume infraction, $90, excess tire width, $45, failure to yield to HOA request, $100. Some of them were handwritten. Some had actual barcodes linked to a payment page. And one resident, Ms. Langston, an elderly woman with arthritis, paid over $900 in HOA citations over 6 months. She thought it was real. She thought non-payment would result in a lien. Karen had built an HOA regime, one clipboard at a time. I couldn't stay silent. I didn't care that I was just military or that it wasn't my jurisdiction. I've served on foreign soil defending principles of freedom, justice, law. No way I was going to watch a fake enforcer with a vest and a delusion hijack public land and call it community safety. I started with a public statement. Using my military clearance, I coordinated with Fort Monarch's Community Liaison Office and recorded a video testimony of the road stop. It went live on the sheriff's website and local news within 24 hours. Then, the veterans. Three vets who lived in Willow Estates came forward. One of them had been threatened with fines for illegal flag display during a VFW barbecue. Another said his wheelchair ramp was labeled a trip hazard and fined $200. I reached out to the County Veterans Coalition. They reached out to the press, and then Karen made a mistake. She showed up to a county planning commission meeting uninvited and tried to argue that new ordinances gave her the right to restrict convoy vehicles on connector roads. Problem was, the meeting was live streamed, and she brought her fake ID badge. Mallory arrested her on the spot, not for the badge, but for presenting false documentation in a public proceeding. It was poetic justice, and it was just beginning. Karen's home was raided a second time, this time by county investigators and DOJ auditors. They seized her printers, laptops, HOA records, and a lockbox containing $28,000 in money orders. Money that was supposed to have gone toward community beautification projects, but there were no projects, no flowers, no street paving, no lighting upgrades, just fines, fees, fear. Mark Decker was charged too. 3 counts: impersonating a law enforcement officer, unlawful detainment, tampering with federal transport operations. He took a plea deal within a week. Karen refused. She still believed she had a case, that the community would back her, that this was all a misunderstanding, but the community, they were just getting started. Karen walked into court like she still owned the block. Gray suit, clean hair, no cuffs. She didn't smile, she smirked. That kind of smug tilt to her chin, like the gavel couldn't touch her. And honestly, that scared me more than if she'd come in crying, because somewhere deep in her, she still believed this was her neighborhood. That all this court proceedings, law enforcement, county oversight was some glitch in the system, a temporary embarrassment, a political error. She didn't believe in justice. She believed in entitlement. The courtroom was packed, folding chairs lining the back wall, news cameras outside, even military personnel in uniform seated quietly behind me. Fort Monarch had taken a direct interest after the obstruction incident. So had the Department of Transportation. So had the state AG's office. Because Karen hadn't just messed with a soldier, she'd created a private traffic enforcement ring that operated for nearly 2 years without any legal standing. She forged over 60 public documents, filed 34 fake traffic citations, blocked at least 4 state-licensed service vehicles, and according to evidence uncovered during digital forensics, deliberately interfered with a military logistics route not once, but 5 times. But none of that hit harder than the testimonies. Ms. Langston, the elderly widow fined for her wheelchair ramp, took the stand first. Her voice trembled. She told me I was a burden to the neighborhood, that if I didn't comply, she'd have my yard seized. A grown man behind me muttered, "Jesus," under his breath. Next came Jamar Lewis, a father of 2 who'd been physically blocked by Karen and Mark while driving his kids to school. "She told me I didn't look like I belonged," he said. "Told me I fit the profile of a mail thief, then fined me $120 for driving through a public road to get to my own driveway." Gasps, audible. Karen didn't blink. Then it was my turn. I took the stand in uniform. Not for drama, just because it was procedure. And I wasn't about to show up in a hoodie while testifying under federal oath. I was pulled over without cause, I said, on a public road, by a man claiming to be an HOA officer. I was leading a coordinated Army Reserve convoy. Our route was logged, approved, and cleared through county mapping. I paused, looked at Karen, then continued. I was ordered out of my vehicle. He attempted to seize my personal effects. Then the HOA president arrived and demanded I reroute military vehicles or face fines. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a systematic abuse of power. That should have been the climax. But it wasn't, because the prosecution had one more witness, a surprise one, Rachel Timmons, the municipal fraud investigator from earlier, took the stand with a small folder labeled Supplemental Discovery, Karen Wallace. She spoke slowly, clearly. We discovered a series of emails from the defendant's home computer. She said, most are related to HOA activity, but one thread stood out. She opened the folder. This email was sent by Ms. Wallace to a developer, Saberstone Properties, 3 months before the roadblock incident. It reads, if I can keep military or highway traffic off Route 24, I can preserve the corridor for private investment. Once easement is claimed, we can begin negotiations. Murmurs echoed through the room. She wasn't protecting the neighborhood. Rachel continued. She was blocking Route 24 to drive down public usage, so she could attempt to flip it into private sale. My heart punched my ribs. This wasn't about flag or fences or even fear. This was about money. Karen had tried to hijack a road to inflate her property value and resell it by making it appear private. Everything made sense after that. The sign, the speakers, the fake citations, the forged easements. She wasn't just drunk on power, she was trying to manufacture ownership, then leverage it for development profit. She wanted to sell the road. The jury didn't need long. Karen was found guilty on all counts: forgery of public documents, impersonation of legal authority, obstruction of federal transport, attempted unlawful land acquisition, harassment, civil rights interference. The judge didn't hold back. You've twisted community involvement into a weapon, he said. You turned trust into fear, and for that, you will serve time not for the roadblock, but for every lie you printed on paper and tried to pass off as law. Sentencing was scheduled for the next month. Meanwhile, in Willow Estates, something incredible happened. The neighborhood changed. People started talking, sharing stories, holding open forums, not just about HOA issues, but about fear, about compliance, about the things we all let slide because it was easier than confrontation. Veterans got involved, teachers, even teens. We created the Citizens Coalition for Community Oversight, a volunteer watchdog group that worked with the county to provide resources to other neighborhoods suffering from fake authority syndrome. Our slogan was simple: authority is earned, not declared. We were invited to speak on local news, then state news. Layla, my sister, even came down from D.C. and joined a panel about HOA abuse and suburban racial targeting. And every time the story came up, someone new would say, that happened to me too. Karen's sentencing drew a crowd. Outside the courthouse, people held signs, no more fake HOAs. Justice Hacker boundaries plus law. You don't own the road. She didn't speak at sentencing. Not a word. The judge gave her 8 years in state prison and ordered full restitution to every resident she fined, plus an additional $110,000 in community penalty damages for obstruction of federal operations. Mark Decker was sentenced to 18 months and barred from holding any public or security-related role ever again. When it was over, I walked the edge of Route 24 again. The sun hit the road like gold. No signs, no cones, no ghost cameras whispering fear. Just open space, public land, a symbol of what we'd fought to keep. It's been 1 year since Karen tried to seize a road. 12 months since she stared me down on Route 24 and told me I didn't belong there on a public road, in a vehicle I paid for, in the country I serve. And now that same stretch of asphalt is something else entirely. It's not just a shortcut to the highway anymore. It's a symbol. Willow Estates is no longer silent, not in the way it was before. Now, on weekends, you'll see folding chairs lining sidewalks, open garage doors with music playing, chalk drawings from neighborhood kids all the way down to the curb. More importantly, you'll see truth on the signage. The fake HOA enforcement zone signs have been replaced with county-stamped plaques reading, "This is a public access road protected under county and state law. No private authority permitted. Simple, clear, unshakable." The Citizens Coalition for Community Oversight grew from our town to 6 others. Layla helps advise. I sit on the regional advisory panel. We run webinars on HOA abuse, civil rights intimidation, and spotting fake authority. We've helped expose 3 more Karen types in 2 other counties. One tried to enforce a Christian-only community covenant. Another fined renters $200 for overgrown bushes despite living in an apartment complex. The more people speak up, the more rot we uncover, because this isn't rare, it's just rarely challenged. Karen today, she's exactly where she belongs. Her name has become a warning, not a punchline, not a meme, a warning, a lesson in what happens when people weaponize illusion and no one pushes back. Her sentence was upheld after appeal. No reduced time, no leniency. The restitution payments started 2 months ago, pulled directly from her liquidated assets. Her fake HOA website shut down. Her fake documents burned in court. Her name banned from any legal or civic authority role for life. He served 11 months and was released on parole. He sent me a letter. It was short, sloppy, but almost honest. I didn't know how far she'd taken it. I thought it was just about keeping things clean. I should have stopped when I saw the signs. I didn't. That's on me. He ended with, "I'm working at a part shop now. I wear a real name badge. Feels better. People still ask me why I didn't just ignore it. Drive away. Let someone else deal with Karen and Mark in their fantasy land of HOA tickets and fake cones." And I tell them this because I've seen what silence costs. Silence lets fraud wear a badge. Silence lets fear grow roots. Silence lets people like Karen twist community into compliance. When someone draws a fake boundary and dares you to cross it, you only have two choices: turn back quietly or push forward and make the truth louder. 1 year anniversary. We held a convoy again, this time ceremonial. The same route, same trucks, only now open flags, clean lines, and a caravan of neighbors on bikes, scooters, and strollers behind us. Kids waved American flags. Seniors clapped from lawn chairs. Someone played Living in America off a Bluetooth speaker. It wasn't about me or military pride. It was about the road, the right to move freely, to exist without permission, to drive down a public street without being told, "You don't belong here." Let's get real. Have you ever seen power abused by someone who wasn't supposed to have it? Ever been told those are the rules only to find out they were made up on a clipboard, then tell someone, say something? Because fake authority only works if we obey it. Fake HOAs, fake cops, fake power, real laws, real community, real justice. Share your story, push back, help others stand taller. Because when truth rolls in like a convoy, lies don't stand a chance.